Well, good morning. It's December 20th at the Tualatin Heritage Center, and we're talking today about the Tualatin Food Pantry and its 20th anniversary. And we have here today with us three important people who helped get it started. And they will tell their stories, and we will ask questions and learn more about it. So I'm just going to let them introduce themselves, starting first with Linda Moholt at the left.
Good morning, Linda Moholt. Nice to see you, Larry.
Hi, I'm Mike Shiffer.
And I'm Kay Gooding.
So as I said, these are three of the people that helped get it started. There were others, including the pastor of the Methodist Church. I believe he had an important role too at the very start. Because in Tualatin at that time, am I right, that there was really no organized way to provide food for those who needed it. There was a small operation at the Seventh-day Adventist Church, right?
Correct.
That's correct.
Other churches, I believe, had ways of serving people who drove up in need, and they would give something temporary. But anyway, this became later known as the Tualatin Schoolhouse Pantry. But let's just hear how that story went. How did the idea really grow then into the big picture we have today? What was the need?
Want me to start?
Go ahead.
Reverend Wes Taylor with the Tualatin United Methodist Church was a part of the greater initiative in Portland, I should say the metro region, to find out about food insecurity. And Oregon, it was actually in total one of the top 5 states in the country. And I happened to find an old article about our starting, and it says the reasons why Oregon was so high was high cost of living, which it still is today, the loss of family wage jobs, which I think we still see, and the disparity between the rich and the poor. And finally, much of Oregon was rural and agricultural, and those jobs are pretty much gone away in that metro region.
I want to make sure we give due credit to Tualatin Seventh-day Adventist Church, because they were a small pantry, but they were serving the community when no one else was, and there were volunteers from churches all around the region. However, they were only able to give out a box of food like every 2 months to family, and their numbers were low. And I believe Oregon Food Bank made Wes Taylor available that they thought there was a much greater need in Tualatin, and so then we got together and started brainstorming.
And I think the thing that helped so with getting us going was Wes's ideas of doing this, and then his connections with like the school district. So by the time we were starting to look at doing this, he already had a location for us through the school district, and all of these things kind of fell into place because of his groundwork that he had done.
Tell us your name again. I think we need to hear that.
Most people still know me as Kay Nelson.
Just to clarify one thing, Wes did help us get the connection with the school district, yes, where we eventually entered, but that was after we had spent a long time trying to find a place to go, and then fortunately the school district came through for us.
So how did others gradually get involved? Other organizations or groups?
I think that is Linda Moholt.
Not at the beginning. I'm going to jump in there, Kay.
Yeah.
Reverend Wes was a part of the greater Portland churches and the metro area. I'm going to use kind of both back and forth. And so when the Oregon Food Bank had done a presentation to the churches, then he brought back to the community. And you're absolutely right, that connection to our community is what made it happen. He visited the pastors of every church in Tualatin, the school district, the hospital came, and we actually had a food summit and gathered people together and started talking about, what could we do? And I know that Mike was instrumental on that planning. I wasn't a part of that initial planning.
One of the amazing things about Tualatin Food Pantry is once word got out through Wes and others, volunteers,
Just-
people to help just came out of the woodwork. There was such a great desire to help, and that's continued to today.
Yes.
The community has been, I can't imagine a community that would be more supportive than the Tualatin community has been for the food pantry effort.
Did you have to become a nonprofit entity at some point?
We did, but we didn't at first because that was a lot of work and we didn't know what it was going to be. So in the beginning, in order to get nonprofit status, we became a subcommittee of Tualatin United Methodist Church. And then it was several years later that we actually filed for our own nonprofit. And it is a nonprofit today.
And you did that.
I did that, that's
Yes.
correct.
It was a lot of work.
Yes, he did. A lot of work.
But then you needed a place. Is that how it happened? You needed a building or something.
Well, yes, we couldn't have a pantry without a
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
But not to be a nonprofit, we didn't need a building, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. So how did you get the school itself?
Well, that's where Kay had said Reverend Wes had really
Make
helped
the connection.
formulate that idea, secure a location. The interesting thing about it is the school had been condemned and we were in the basement. So to get food in and out of the basement when we would bring in our deliveries or the community would bring in deliveries, it was kind of overwhelming.
Yes.
It was.
And it certainly was dangerous.
Yes.
And
yet-
not very warm.
And not
No.
warm, no heat, and no air conditioning in the summer.
And basically no bathrooms without
Yeah.
going outside. But eventually, the school district decided, we were downstairs and the Tualatin Resource Center was upstairs, but then the school district figured out this really wasn't a safe environment to be because of earthquake danger, asbestos. So the school district actually put us into 2 portable buildings on the property and put in porta potties. So we moved from downstairs to 2 portables with a ramp that we could go up and down.
Yes.
So that was a big,
That was a
it doubled our
huge help.
space
Yes.
too.
It did, and we had heat,
And
which
we had
was
heat.
We did have heat.
wonderful. Yeah.
Sort of.
But then you had to find shelving and other
Yes.
things.
And all
Yes.
those things were donated.
Yeah.
Once people heard we were doing this, it's like they came out of the woodwork with, oh, my business has shelves they're gonna get rid of. Can you use
Well,
it?
Yeah,
Space
tell us about
Saver-
the shelves.
Well, yes, Space Saver Specialists,
Yeah.
right here in Tualatin, donated the shelving, but everything was about relationships. George Bolsey was a member of the Tualatin United Methodist Church. His brother owned Space Saver Specialists. So things like that, it's like, do you have a need? We would send out, we need this, we need that. And the next thing, somebody would come forward. I'd like to give a shout out to Tigard Catholic Church.
Yes.
St. Anthony's?
St.
St.
Anthony's.
Anthony's.
Yes, they helped us get started and gave us food load after food load. My husband Ron and I would drive over there and they would fill up the back of the van. We'd bring it back to get started, but we were feeding 50 to 70 families a week from the day we opened.
Yes.
Which was astounding because when they first drugged me into this, I'm like, I didn't know that we had poverty in Tualatin. I was so ignorant. I thought, well, I know I see a few homeless, but it wasn't a high, situation. I see a few people that look like they just might not have a lot, but I didn't understand that there's a big difference between not just being fed and being hungry. I mean, it's like I had no clue.
At the very beginning, we had food coming in from like St. Anthony's Food Pantry, and a lot of food donations, but we also got food from the Oregon Food Bank. And we would make trips every week to pick up food and load our cars full of food from the Oregon Food Bank. It was a great relief to the pantry when later, after we had moved to Rolling Hills, Oregon Food Bank also finally decided we were a big enough pantry that they would deliver to us.
Yeah.
So that was a huge relief.
Yes.
Although I had the best muscles in my life when we were going out to Hillsboro to get those loads of food. Oh
And
my
then in
gosh.
Oh, that kind of mussels. I was thinking, when did we get mussels at the food pantry?
No, not those muscles.
Yeah.
And in
No.
between time, we got, one of the companies picked up our food banks.
Yes, that's
From,
correct.
what's it called?
DPI,
No.
no, not DPI.
That came later. It
yeah,
was,
yeah,
I'll have to think about it.
I'll have to
Yeah,
think about
yes,
it too. Yes, we
yeah.
had someone who volunteered, a company that volunteered to pick up food for
For
us.
us at the
And I
food
think that started after we moved to Rolling Hills
It
too.
did.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
later
Yeah.
in the game.
I thought of something I think I should mention. One of the decisions we made early on is we didn't want to just give out donated or food pantry food. We wanted to be able to provide every family that came fresh milk, fresh eggs, so we made a commitment to do that, and they're still
Yes.
doing that today. So we would purchase food and eggs by trips to Costco or whatever.
Fred Meyer, who was
Fred
ever
Meyer.
on sale.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we would be buying 100 gallons a time. And people in the stores were kind of like, what are you doing with all that milk?
milk.
And we're like, we're giving it away.
Yeah.
Wow. How did you determine who should receive this? Who's qualified?
Now, that was Mike.
Well, together,
Yes.
Yeah.
we decided initially that we would serve any family who lived in Tualatin or Durham and had a need for food. That was our only requirement.
Correct.
We never questioned income or anything like that. So anyway, it was basically, if someone said they had a need, we accepted it and provided them food. And we served them one time a month at that time.
Right. Correct.
And
Except for our homeless guys.
correct.
And that became quite a source of muscle for us, they would come sometimes every day we were open, the 3 days, and help load, unload, move the food from the storage place to the shelving. And they were great for us. And we had, somebody donated a little old refrigerator, and we put things in there that they could take. They couldn't take a month's load. What would they do with it? No, without refrigeration, so that they could have food on a weekly basis. And it was anything we felt was appropriate that they could prepare and eat, we put in there. But they were great workers for us.
I think from the moment we opened, it was all about serving the community. It wasn't
Yes.
about to judge the community
Yes.
or make presumptions on anything. It was totally about serving, and our volunteers felt that way. And so it just carried through. Also, we followed the Oregon Food Bank. We would not just feed people food, but we'd help eliminate the root causes of hunger. And then we got to do some fun things too. I had people come to me when I was on a day, and one of them was a hairdresser in town, and she wanted to give back to school haircuts for free. I'm like, I think we can figure that out. And so that would happen, and you guys would have somebody come in and ask you, can you do this? And we would figure out ways to do
Sure.
a little special things that could make somebody's life a little bit easier.
And
Linda?
then we had the dental van, which
Yes.
was great, came once a month, and that was from,
Medical teams.
the medical teams had the van, and then we made the arrangement, and somebody volunteered, oh, I can make the reservations for them.
Yeah.
It was always so many people coming to us with the ideas, that's
Yes.
what they could do, and would share.
Do you know that that dental van started in 2006? It's still going to this day, and I have to give a shout out. Tualatin Rotary has funded it for many years, but the first one was funded by us passing the hat in
Yeah.
Tualatin United Methodist Church, and
Church.
people putting money in the hat, and because we had to pay money every month when they came, and it was started out probably around 100, and I think maybe it's 200 now, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I can't
But
remember.
anyway, it was one of those things that we just decided, talking to our clients, they told us, oh my gosh, my son's got major pain, or my husband lost his job because of dental pain. That was the craziest story I had ever heard, but he went to the hospital, got some medicine for that night, but still had dental pain the next day. And unfortunately, if you don't show up for work, the number one reason for being fired is no show. So we would get ourselves, I guess, stories of how people's lives were being affected or impacted, and we'd try to do something to make it a little bit better.
To bring everyone up to date on the dental van, Tualatin Food Pantry sponsored the dental van until about 6 months ago, and it's now being sponsored and coordinated by the Borland Free Clinic, which is at Rolling Hills. And
Right,
so that's
next door.
You're right, and that's appropriate, so they're now coordinating that.
That's awesome, Mike.
Yeah.
Volunteer coordinator for a while to start with, is that right?
Actually, it was 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah.
Yes, and then with 2008, with the crash of the economy, it was time for me to go back to work. So I did that as a volunteer coordinator, and then went back to work in 2008.
But then later on, Mike, you were there a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was there until 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, excuse me, the end of last year.
And that included checking people in, I remember.
Checking people in, helping with admin,
Yeah.
paying bills, all that stuff.
Directing staff, because we eventually got staff.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us about this innovation called the birthday bags. What was that?
One day, a woman walks in and she said, I've got an idea. So she sits down and first tells me about her own story. She had been a stay-at-home mom and ended up divorced and without any source of income and needed food, needed everything. And the most traumatizing thing for her during this period of time was the fact that she couldn't give her children a birthday. And eventually she got her life turned around and said, I think there's a way I could help others have a birthday when times are tough. So she came in and we started talking and brainstorming, and the next thing she said, every month I'm going to bring you birthday bags with a cake mix, some sprinkles, frosting, sometimes she would get paper plates, sometimes she would have wrapping paper, whatever she could find, she would put in these birthday bags. And then we just kept a simple little card file. And we would put the kids, when the moms came in or the dads came in, we'd put the kids in the file. And when it was their birthday month, they got handed a bag. Oh my gosh, it was the highlight, I think, of my entire time at the pantry, to be able to take something that had been a challenge and make it into such a wonderful time for these kids.
And then when she was no longer able to keep up with the need, we made it known to the public, and we would get donations from youth groups, scouts, individuals.
Yeah.
Somebody having a birthday deciding instead of presents, they wanted people to bring stuff for birthday bags. So it's a wonderful thing. And as far as I know, it's still going today.
Yes. Isn't that something? So see, just a simple idea that turns into a beautiful thing.
But then there was also coordination of people wanting to do a food drive and
Oh, yeah.
and then so you've got somebody has to coordinate that,
Yes.
and how they're going to deliver it and sort it or whatever, right?
Right?
We did that until 2010,
Right.
the three of us.
Right.
Yeah.
And in 2010, the board decided we needed some help, so we hired our program coordinator at that time, and she did lots of things, but one of the things she did was coordinate all the food drives. So she was a tremendous asset.
Yes.
And the food drives became huge. I think the largest one I ever worked with was around 10,000 pounds.
Oh, yes.
But these were like, Tualatin High School and Lake Oswego. And so all the big schools in the area usually did a food drive, and then the scouts always did one during December.
During December, right.
But this is a real problem when you were still at the old school, I'm sure. because
We
what
were.
to do with
Yeah.
all of that came in at one time?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
How did you happen to have to move from the old school portables to the new location?
Well, the school district wanted us to move because
They were going to.
it was obviously an expense for them, and the property had been sold to Marquee, and so they wanted to develop. So we started searching for someone else, and thanks to some connections on our board, Rolling Hills Community Church had a totally unfinished basement. And they knew they weren't going to be able to build it out as their original plans, and so we were invited to come and look and imagine what could be done. And they agreed that if we paid for half of the renovation needed, we could have the space for an unbelievable low amount per month.
I'm not
And so-
even sure if it covered utilities.
Oh,
But it included utilities, but we didn't
Yeah.
pay, we only paid for phone.
Yeah.
It was the only thing we paid for. And so Rolling Hills has been a huge blessing
Yes.
to the pantry. And if we doubled our space when we moved into the portables, I would say we doubled it again when we moved into Rolling Hills. Plus, we had indoor bathrooms.
Yes.
Yes.
Huge thing.
And
I-
no
heat-
steps.
And heat was a little questionable.
Well, it still is.
It's a little cool down
That's
there.
a major effort at the
But it keeps
pantry
the
right
food safe, so it's
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
good.
And, you know, at the beginning, we relied on donated refrigeration, freezers, refrigerators. I think when we moved into portables, we bought one
Nice.
stainless steel double door freezer.
Fabulous.
Since we moved into Rolling Hills,
You get the walk-ins.
the pantry has acquired a lot of commercial refrigeration. So we're probably, the Tualatin Food Pantry is probably one of the most refrigerating
Well
abundancy
equipped.
of
Yes.
any pantry in the area.
And again, to review how it works, on the typical days it's open, it's what dates typically in the week are they open now today?
Still the
They're
same.
open today, but they're open only in the morning today. They're open two times on Monday. They're not open on Tuesdays because that's food delivery day. And they have a time on Wednesdays and a time on Thursday nights. So any of those times.
And so a family can come in and actually do shopping, is that how it works?
Well, the way it has worked has changed over the years. Initially, we set up as a store, and people coming in would shop with a volunteer would say, you can take 2 from this section or 3 from that section. And that continued when the pantry moved to Rolling Hills, and it continued actually until COVID.
We had shopping carts that they took
Yes.
around to.
Yes. And during COVID, they had to go to a pre-packed model. So people would drive up and be handed food. But at the end of COVID, we looked at the model again and said, you know, this is great, but it takes a lot of volunteers. And sometimes clients might not feel they're really making their own decisions. So we switched to a help yourself and assisted, where some of the areas they could just go down and there were signs that said you can have 3 from this section or whatever, and then a volunteer would help them with the refrigerated things. But more recently, the pantry has shifted to an entire self-service model. So all that happens is when a family checks in, based on the number of people in their family, they're designated as a small or large family, and they do the entire shopping by themselves, and there are signs that say, small families, you can have any 2 from this section, you can have unlimited from this section, etc. And so it's entirely on their own now unless they ask a volunteer to help, which is really a way to increase the dignity of the clients coming. It's almost like going to a grocery store, but without the checkout line.
I think that, I haven't witnessed that yet, but it seems like there would be less wasted food too, because people are picking up what
Yes.
they actually are going to use. So I
Yes.
love that idea.
Yeah.
Really a nice improvement.
So the source of the food, again, review, started out with food drives and some Oregon Food Bank help for
Right.
sure. What's it look like today?
Can I jump in from the past?
Yeah.
I know when I was volunteer coordinator, the board said, can you go call on, some of the organizations, churches in the area, tell them what we're looking for, what do we need? And we would actually put out an email and say, alert, we're out of cereal, we're out of tuna fish, we're out of peanut butter. So during the Christmas time, like the 6 weeks before Christmas, because that's a really heavy time when food intake, we'd say, okay, this is the week we need peanut butter, this week we need tuna. Sources of protein are always important. Cereals, fresh fruits and vegetables, if people could afford to buy and bring them in to us. We loved putting out fresh fruits and vegetables if they were available. Things like that. So that was really helpful to get, the community to participate. And I think today it's probably even bigger. And then the food drives.
Well, I guess,
We ordered weekly from the Oregon Food Bank.
Yes.
And I always did that on Fridays.
Yes, you did. They still order on Fridays.
Do they really?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. And so that the delivery would be there on Tuesday, so part of my job was to go through and see what we were short of. And then what we didn't have and couldn't get from the food bank, then Linda got it for us by sending out these emails. Because sometimes we cannot get cereal or peanut butter, there'd be an item or 2 or 3 items that we just simply could not get through the food bank.
And do you still have to pay for the food bank?
Kind of.
Kind of.
Oregon Food Bank is basically a collection depot for food drives across Oregon and part of Washington. And many of the items are allocated, so we get an allocation based on the size of the pantry for a certain amount of meat or peanut butter or whatever. And for those items that are allocated, the pantry pays a share cost, which is very cheap, like 10 cents a pound or something like that. Oregon Food Bank also has items that they purchase wholesale that they sell back to the pantries for wholesale. For example, we might not have an allocation for peanut butter, but they might have it on their food to buy, and so we could buy it for a cheaper rate than we could do. So that's the sort of food that comes from the Oregon Food Bank. Plus the Oregon Food Bank has an area, like a cooler area, when I don't remember if they did then, when you go to pick up your food, you can go in the cooler and take whatever your pantry needs too. So that was the Oregon Food Bank. And then food drives were a huge source, and they would come from churches, organizations, whatever, and then finally donations. So those are still the primary sources of food. As far as buying food, we used to go all over, Costco, Fred Meyer, wherever we could get the best deal. In order to be more efficient, the pantry is now more focusing the purchase of the food through organizations that provide a lot of what they need. For example, Cisco, who delivers to the pantry. So they buy all their milk now from Cisco. Pay a little more for it, but nobody has to pick it up and fill their car with 100 gallons of milk.
And we have a big company here in town called Pacific Foods. Don't they donate a lot?
Oh, yes.
Well, they did.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, they're not Pacific Foods anymore,
Yeah.
so. They were, in fact,
Pricing.
yeah, they are. They were purchased by Campbell's. But Pacific Foods was the #1 donor of food to the Oregon Food Bank as well. Plus, they would give us stuff like, they love to give us soup, which we always love. Yeah, they were a great partner.
And then farmers sometimes bring in a big bunch of...
They still do.
They
Farmers
still do.
and local gardeners. Kay, you mentioned community gardens. Yeah.
We started, or it kind of is because we needed or was wanting fresh food, that kind of started the community gardens. And like at our church, we had quite a bit, a large area that we did that with the help of the Timbers. And then we were able then to also have plots for individual families that wanted to grow their own food. And because of Larry, I, for years, raised tomatillas in my raised beds at home. And it was not unusual for us to have 5 pounds a week to go. And there is such a demand for them with the Hispanic people because they love them. And gee, they were easy to raise and it wasn't a big deal. But that led to so many other things that happened in the community. It was really a springboard for a lot of service groups in Tualatin.
Yeah, there are local farms that still donate.
Yeah, still donate.
But most of the produce donations come from individuals who are gardening, have their own garden, and are sharing their harvest with the pantry. So that's a wonderful thing to have in the summer in particular.
I'll add on to that. As a result of the pantry's need, there's a group called Neighbors Nourishing Communities, and they have started supporting community gardens, and you can go in the springtime and get all your starts for free, build your community garden, and if you donate 10% of your produce, they'll keep giving you starts for the next year. So taking those to the food bank. And I remember the first year I had a few things that, and then all of a sudden I had so much I was taking in.
Yeah.
I was sending neighbors and everything, sending it with them. And I still do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are plenty of times the pantry is open and they have so much produce they can't give it all away, so
Yeah.
they try to, but in the end, you end up having to compost stuff because it doesn't keep or can't be
Right, sure.
refrigerated.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just phenomenal, and people love that stuff. They really do.
So it started out volunteers, pretty much spending a lot of their hours every week. How's it grown now? You had it staff, gradually came on board? And
Well, as I said, in 2010, we hired a program coordinator. And she was there until, I guess, about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
When the board decided there was so much work to do that our volunteer coordinator couldn't handle this and we needed an executive director. So we hired an executive director, Danielle Schneider, who's still there, and she's half-time, and she currently has 2 or 3 part-time staff. And right now they're working to get funds to hire more because the work is just, the demand continues to grow. And the pantry also made a decision 2-3 years ago to serve families twice a month instead of once a month. So that's basically doubled
The amount.
what they do.
Yeah.
so what would you say would be an average monthly service
Um,
count?
I'd say now I don't have the current numbers, but I think it's like 800 to 900 households a month. Compared to, I have the notes here. The first month we were open was only for a little bit, so it wasn't very big. Oh, here it is. In November 2004, we served 235 families. That was the first full month that we were open. And so for 2004, we averaged, we kept growing until we were about 500 a month. And then it kept growing from there.
I'm curious, are we still the second largest food bank in Washington County?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what the largest would be.
Hillsborough?
No, I don't think so. But I don't know. But we are one of the we count as one of the larger pantries, so
Yeah.
we get a large allocation from Oregon Food Bank.
Is the service area bigger than Tualatin now?
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
I don't remember exactly when we decided, but we decided since there was one food pantry in Wilsonville and they weren't able to service a lot, so we added Wilsonville to our service area. And we already had Tualatin and Durham. And since then, we've added Lake Oswego because there was no pantry in Lake Oswego at the time. And did I forget somebody?
Did you, West Lynn?
West Lynn.
and West Lynn.
West Lynn, yeah. So that's currently what they're serving, but still the majority of the clients come from the Tualatin area because it's convenient for them.
Convenient.
Well, I've been over there myself, and I know that sometimes a nice-looking car comes up, someone well-dressed, and people say, why would that person need food? And
That was a volunteer reaction too, wasn't it?
It
sometimes?
was.
It was.
We did have a woman come in this beautiful SUV dressed to the nines, and she's like, please don't judge. My story is crazy, but my husband left me. He wiped out my bank account, and I need to get my kids through the weekend. She said, shortly I will have funds again. There will be, proceedings and attorneys, etc. But right now I could use a helping hand. And so we always said, look, our job is not to judge, our job is to serve. And of course we made her feel welcome, and she came back after that and became a very, very good not a volunteer, but a donor, wrote checks.
Yeah.
And that's so true of the way the pantry continues to operate. From the beginning, we wanted it to be a welcoming, non-judgmental place where people come, and comments the pantry receives back say that mission is still being fulfilled. It is comfortable.
Yeah.
And there's a welcoming area, the kids can come and they can play off to the side.
Well, that doesn't exist right now.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
No. Because it's a self-serving environment,
Oh.
they're operating a little differently now. There are chairs set up in the hallway outside the pantry, and a certain number of people, they're still given numbers and come in order, but only a few at a time.
Okay,
So,
Oh,
good.
I will say they still serve children though. Books on Wheels
yes,
delivers
yes.
Yes.
books every season, and they just took over a couple hundred, maybe 300 books for the holidays. So
Yes.
kids could take home a book and
Yes.
keep it.
yeah.
That sounds like a Rotary Club project or something.
We've
Well,
helped
it's-
fund
it's-
that. It's
yeah.
actually,
Is it Kiwanis?
no, it's Rotary that funds it.
Oh, I just-
It was
okay.
started by an individual, Diane Bonica, and it is a 501c3 that exists under the school district's charter, but Rotary has taken on responsibility for funding it, and of course, we look for donations through the community to keep those books going. I think they've given out about 3,000 books this
Oh,
year.
wow.
One of the things I really liked about working at the pantry was communicating with the guests. I mean, you got to,
Yes.
you know, people tend to come the same time every month, and so you really get to know them.
Yes.
And it really helps you see them as an individual,
Yes.
just like you, who could be you. And so, I don't know, that was really special to me. Can I tell a little story about a client I once
Yes.
had? And you guys probably heard this before. We were still in the basement at the old Tualatin Elementary School. And this lady would come in every week, and her young son would come in with her. And she could not speak and she could not hear, so her son would sign to her. They said you can have 3 of this or whatever that. And so I got to know them pretty well. And one time they came in and we happened to have a great supply of cereal that day, all different kinds. And so I said, you can have 1 box of cereal. And so the son started signing to his mom, but he wasn't signing you can have 1 box of cereal. He was arguing to get the sugar cereal that he wanted, and this went on for several minutes. And he won. They got the sugar cereal.
Do you remember the cereal lady?
Oh yes,
Oh, yes.
yes. I still
There
see her
was-
once in a while.
There was a woman.
Well, there were 2 of them. The mother first.
Oh, I didn't know that. The
No,
next
that was
generation.
the mother that started.
Yeah.
And after she died, her daughter took over. But this
Tell the
woman would bring
story.
in hundreds and
Hundreds
hundreds
of boxes
of cereal.
of
And she
cereal.
would buy cereal on sale all year round.
And she cut coupons.
And she cut
Yes,
coupons, so
cut
she got her,
coupons.
and so she had like rooms full of cereal, and then she
Yeah.
would bring it into us once a month. And after she passed, her daughter decided she wanted to carry on the tradition.
That's
So every once in a
awesome.
while, she'll come in with a load of cereal.
Oh, my gosh.
I did not know that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
It is.
So, any other standout memories you have of that time? Would you ever dream it would come to this point?
20 years. I was hoping that it wouldn't come to this point. I really believed in the goal of the Oregon Food Bank to eliminate hunger and its root causes. And we've done a pretty poor job as a state, I think, to do that. And right now, the numbers are increasing on hunger, and we've seen what homelessness looks like in our area. So I was hoping we'd be done with this.
I guess I hope so too, but my dream was that if there is still a need, we'll still be able to serve the community after many years, and so that has been fulfilled.
And I think mine was the involvement of the homeless men that came in and worked, some of them every day that we were open, and how those relationships were built. And because of our relationships with them, how they then moved in one particular person that went back with his father, went off of drugs and alcohol, and now is living and has a good job in Portland.
Which is
And I
wonderful.
just think of, it was the simple fact that we all accepted all these guys and kind of joked with them and laughed with them and
Treated them with respect.
yes, and they felt at home and they felt worthwhile because they were there and actually doing something and it was helping. And they really enjoyed that, whether it was counting or carrying those heavy boxes that we couldn't carry and getting the
Physical
shelving
labor.
and, yeah.
One special moment occurs to me, and Linda, this is something that you were mainly responsible for, so maybe you could talk more about it. It was the first Thanksgiving that we
Oh
gave
my
out
gosh.
turkeys
Oh.
and things to our clients.
Oh.
And they still do that every Thanksgiving, so.
Do you know, I had a business come in that wanted to donate turkeys. They gave turkeys to their employees, and they wanted to donate what hadn't gone out. Some people don't like turkey, and so they wanted to donate it to the pantry, and it was actually quite a few turkeys. And I'm like, what are we going to do with these? How are we going to decide? Well, let's give a Thanksgiving turkey out. And then so we used some funds, we fundraised and got some more money, and people brought in turkeys, and now it is a thing.
Yeah.
And they
Yes.
give a full Thanksgiving dinner with cranberries and mashed potatoes and anything green beans.
Green beans.
Well-
Yeah.
Too many green beans.
Yeah, some years it's corn, it depends what they had a lot of, yeah.
Or pumpkin. I mean,
Yeah.
it really turned out to be something amazing. So I think there's probably, 1,000 turkey dinners going out?
I don't know the numbers.
Yeah, anyway, it's
A lot.
really, really grown a lot.
Yeah, and this is in addition to their regular allocation of
Yes.
food, it's something extra.
And those who didn't want chickens, we provided chickens when
Yeah, correct. Because a lot of the
Yeah.
Hispanic community had never
had
had
a Thanksgiving. Yeah,
And so they said, can we get chicken? Sure,
Yeah.
we can buy chicken.
yeah, yeah.
I thought of another special thing that the pantry did. They're not doing it anymore, and I don't think you were there when it started, but we had a volunteer who was an amateur photographer, but he was very, very good. And one year he decided, you know what? I'll bet these families would like a Christmas picture.
that's
So
so
he set up a
nice.
little studio setting,
Yes.
and families would come in, and he would take a Christmas photograph for them with their kids or whatever, and then he printed them,
Wow.
and the family, when they came back, got their photo, and that was really special. So lots of little things like that.
Lots of great memories.
Yes.
So we're
Yes.
celebrating this year then 20 years
20 years.
of
Wow.
this success in Tualatin. And again, I want to thank you. On my left is Linda Moholt, Mike Shiffer, Kay Gooding, who were major players in the start of our Tualatin Food Pantry. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.